G'day. Today I'm going to talk about a really important part of being a law archer in the SCA, and that is your armour. So first of all, when you're looking at what sort of armour you need, one of the things you want to do is go to the Fighter's Handbook for your kingdom, look it up and read through it and get a good understanding or reasonable understanding of what's set out in the Kingdom Handbook for armour standards. There are heaps of people in the SCA who are willing to help out, marshals, other fighters, etc., etc. And having conversations with them about what works for them and so on and so forth is great. But if you've gone through that handbook and got a bit of a grasp of what those requirements are, then all those conversations will be a lot more meaningful. You can ask specifics about things rather than starting from scratch. Right, so getting your armour together. In short, you can either make it or have it made, or you can buy it. These days, there are really good, reputable suppliers online, and it's quite possible to go online and buy any number of parts of your armour for good competitive prices, and that's actually a really good way to go. When I first started playing SCA, that wasn't really an option, and I was a starving uni student, so I essentially had to make my own armour. That was the way it was going to happen. And I've developed the skills to make armour. Now, I really enjoy making armour, and today if I'm going to upgrade a piece, then I'll be making it myself. A big part of that is just the joy of making it and wearing something you've made. But if I found the SCA today, then I'm got deeper pockets and I'm very time poor, so I would certainly be considering buying armour off the shelf from a reputable business and ask other people to give me a bit of a hand to fit it properly and strap it and so on and so forth, ready to go. There's lots of different materials that you can use for your armour, and you should have a bit of a think about that with putting it together. So you've got, if you're making it yourself, you've got to think about how hard it is to work with those materials to make it. So leather, for example, is something that more people have the tools and ability to work as compared to steel. But it's typically isn't any cheaper or not significantly cheaper, and it needs more maintenance. So it tends to wear a bit more. Stainless steel versus mild steel. Stainless, if you're making your armour, stainless steel is a lot harder to work. Mild steel, on the other hand, needs more maintenance. If you chuck it in your armour bag and leave your armour bag somewhere where it's a little bit damp for 8 months, and you might pull out a really rusty helmet that needs a lot of work to get it back on the field. Each person has their own particular mix, and if you have conversations with other people about how they maintain their armour and what they need to do and how they make it, you'll get a good feel for what's going to work for you. One point in maintenance of armour is make sure you do it. The good old roll of duct tape is a stock standard part of the SCA. However, it shouldn't be the first thing you pull out of your armour bag. So, when you're packing away your armour after a training session or after an event, make a bit of a mental note, if something needs fixing, and ideally you want to do that before you pull it back out of the armour bag and put it back on. Another thing to think about is your persona. So the time period that you're coming from, the culture that you're coming from. Do you want to make armour that represents that persona? And a lot of people do, and it can look fantastic. Should note though, some cultures and time periods are a little bit harder, and the clever ways people find to make their armour legal while still maintaining that look is an interesting part of the game. Minimum standards are set out in your Fighter's Handbook. And they are absolutely necessary. Whatever the minimum is, make sure that you meet that. However, there's no rule saying you can't have more than that minimum amount of armour, and very, very few fighters fight in strictly minimum legal armour. My rule of thumb is that you should wear as much armour as you feel you need to wear to feel comfortable on the field. So you don't want to go out there feeling incredibly naked and vulnerable. All you'll be thinking the whole time is someone's going to hit me and it's going to hurt. Instead, wear more armour as you feel is fit, to the point where you feel pretty comfy out there. In my own personal journey, I found that over time I have dropped off bits of armour. So when I first started out, I used to wear a breast and back plate. And after a couple of years, I thought to myself, actually, I don't need that anymore. And off it went. So my armour has become a bit of an evolutionary process. Really important is that your armour fits you, that it's comfortable and it's easy to move around in. And ideally, it should be easy to get on and off, and ideally get it on and off all by yourself. It's all about it being an easy thing for you to use and you to wear. The more comfortable you are in it, the longer you can fight, the more frequently you can fight, the better you're going to get. All right, so now I'm going to run through the bits of armour in my kit. So starting in no particular order, we'll start with the feet. Sturdy shoes, irrespective of what your Kingdom's Fighter Handbook says. I would strongly recommend good sturdy shoes with a bit of ankle support at a minimum. You will be moving around a lot, and one thing you really don't want to do is roll your ankle when you step on something. That would make for a really bad day. Moving up, we have our knee cops. So I have these stainless steel knee cops, or a two-piece stainless steel welder pattern. You notice there's a bit of leather at the top and the bottom. The top bit of leather has some holes in it, and that enables me to lace it directly to my my leggings, and that provides the support point for the for the weight of that knee cop. Strap around the back, that basically just locates it so it sits nice and snug against the knee and doesn't go flopping all over the place. Bit on the bottom is actually really important as well, because if that's not there, then you've got the steel banging against your shin, and after a very short period of time, it starts to hurt and bruise, and that's no fun at all. Padding is really important. I use close-cell foam for padding, but what I do is I cover it in fabric, and there's three reasons for that. So one is that the fabric is much better at absorbing the sweat. Close-cell foam doesn't absorb it at all, and if you've got naked close-cell foam or naked skin, then it gets hot, it gets sweaty, it gets slimy. It's not very pleasant. Number two is that it helps the closed-cell foam last a lot longer. So if you don't have anything, if you have that covering on the closed-cell foam, then it will last 2 or 3 times longer than it would if it wasn't there. And in the long term, you'll actually find it'll decrease the amount of time you spend on that whole on your armour. Last but not least, it's far more aesthetically pleasing than bare closed-cell foam. So it's just one of those little tweaks that you can do that makes you present that much better on the field. All right, working up a little bit more, we have groin protection. That's common sense. Next step up, we have a kidney belt. So for me, I have this old thing. I made this about over 15 years ago, probably close to 20 years ago. It's thick leather with aluminium plates riveted to the inside. You can sort of see that there. And then the closed-cell foam covered in fabric once again. This has got close, at least 15, probably close to 20 years of wear in it. And yeah, it's looking a little bit ratty, but if that hadn't been covered in the fabric, then it would have been long since perished and replaced. The reason I've used aluminium plates rather than mild steel, for example, is because aluminium doesn't rust. Also, it's pretty easy to pick up street signs, which are about 2 mil thick, makes a gentler edge than a thinner mild steel. And why didn't I go for stainless steel? Well, simply because aluminium is much, much easier to work, and it's all hidden. Nobody's ever going to see that. It just provides that extra bit of protection. Okay. A bit further up now, we're going to look at the gambeson. And your gambeson sits underneath most of your other armour, and it provides protection in 2 ways. So one is obviously it has a certain amount of resistance to anything that's hitting you, which helps out a little bit. But what it also does is it provides protection from your own armour. So those sharp edges on metal, those rivets that come loose or whatever it might be, all those things that bite you, armour bite, your gambeson provides a good level of protection against that. I have made my own gambeson. You can buy them as well, and there are really good gambesons out there that you can buy for really competitive prices. But if you can sew, or you have someone in your life who can sew, then you might want to consider making one yourself. If you are going to do that, then you want to use sturdy fabric, both outside and inside. And for the lining, use natural fibered material. So I've got cotton wadding in here. Avoid the temptation to buy polyester wadding because it is really hot. Doesn't really work anywhere near as well when it comes to all that sweat that's coming off your body, and over time it'll start to get manky and smelly and so on and so forth. So natural fibres is the way to go. With my particular gambeson, you can see there's loops up here, and there's a train of loops that go down. I have a single tie at the bottom. It takes a little bit longer to put on, but it takes approximately 3 seconds to take off. And if you've got a choice between it being quick to go on or quick to come off, then at the end of the day, when you're had a nice hard day's fighting, you'll really appreciate being able to take off your kit a little bit faster. Going out along the arms, you need to have protection on your elbows. And in my case, I've got these nice little neat elbow cops, which is identical pattern to the knee cops, but sized down a bit. With the buckles on my elbows and knee cops, I have a left and a right. And so with the knee cops, the buckles are on the outside. And on the elbows, the buckles are at the tops of the arms like so. The reason for it being on the outside on the knees is because if I'm running along and the knees are banging together a little bit, it means that the buckles aren't banging together, which would potentially damage them and cause them to fail. And the reason the buckles are on the tops of the arms rather than the bottoms is that when I draw a bow, here we go, I'll put that in slightly, there we go, draw a bow and shoot, I don't want a buckle sitting about here that could catch on the bowstring. So it's all about protecting my equipment as well. You'll also notice there's kind of a curvature in there. There we go, line that up. And so that flatter curve is on the outside, that tighter curve sits on the inside of the arm. Okay, coming a bit further out, we're going to look at hand protection, and half gauntlets are fantastic. So I can put that on, I can wear it all day, has minimal impact on my movements. I can shoot with this, no problems at all. I would say don't skimp on your half gaunts. So when you're fighting as a melee combatant with a basket hilted sword, the basket hilted sword provides a lot of that protection. Fighting as an archer, you don't have that sword in your hand, so having these back plates coming all the way up gives you that much more protection on the back of your hand without it impeding your ability to shoot. You may notice on my left hand that I wear a gauntlet, but I'll discuss that more a bit later because I wear that when I'm fighting as a heavy archer. Minimum requirements is half gauntlet on each hand. All right, coming a bit further north, whoop, goes to the neck. And protect the neck, you have a gorget, which is basically something that goes around your neck, boom, and that protects your neck. And then on the top of your head, you have your helmet. And this is my helmet. It's made out of stainless steel. Has a clap visor, so I can pop that little baby up. And because I'm in Lochac and we're shooting with wooden shaft blunted arrows, it has this mesh on the faceplate. So that protects you from potential injuries from arrows bouncing back or arrow shafts breaking. So that's a nice little neat safety measure. Just one note, when it comes to helmets and gorgets, is that often people will lend someone new their armour. Just be quite cognizant of the fact that we're all different sizes, different shapes, and that helmet gorget interface is really important. So just because this suit of armour fits well on this person doesn't mean that they're going to fit well on this person. Even if they're roughly the same size and shape. Some people have a short, stout neck like I do. Other people have a much taller, longer neck. So that's something to consider there. If you're buying a helmet online, make sure that you are getting something that is legal. Another important thing to note and know if you're fighting in the Kingdom of Lochac is that we have plumes archers, so plumes, non-contact combat archers and participants, by banner bearers. They are not to be struck by a melee combatant. If that melee combatant comes within 5 meters of them, they call them slain and they must yield. There's no question about that. They must yield if they're called dead. And a plumes combatant will have, protruding from the back or top of the helmet, a plume, which has to be at least 30 centimetres high, a foot. It has to be able to bend at least 90 degrees and then return back to that original position. It also must be in contrasting colours. And so the idea there is that a plumed combatant, plumed combat archer, can be clearly seen and will not be struck. But if someone comes in 5 meters of them, bang, you're dead. All right, so now let's have a look at how all this goes together out on the ground.
Okay, my lords and ladies, let's look at how it all goes together. Gambeson underneath everything. Box down here, really important. Sturdy footwear, because you want to be able to walk on this stuff. Knee protection. Kidney protection, the form of kidney belt. What I was saying earlier on about making sure you maintain your armour. If you've got 2 straps in your kidney belt, one breaks, fix that stuff. Fix it straight away. Elbow cops to the elbows. Hand protection. This is a very, very typical half gaunt that is really good for use for a combat archer. Finally up top, we've got the gorget protecting the neck and the helmets. And because we're in Lochac and we're using blunted arrows with wooden shafts, it has a mesh on it, which protects you from the possibility of bounce back or a broken shaft. It's all nice and easy to wear. I can do anything in this that I could normally do. If I had to dance in this armour, I could, no problem. Let's just take this helmet off for a tick. So I've used a combination of materials in making my armour. I've got leather, I've got cloth, I've got closed cell foam for padding, aluminium, stainless steel. And getting the right combination for you, so it works for you, is really important. Just a little final note, the scalloping of this half gaunt means that I can conveniently scrape the sweat off my brow when I take my helmet off. And last but not least, the lip on the bell of the half gaunt means I can just open up the beer like that. Cheers, thank you very much, we'll see you next time.